ever, 10-ton Hammer Talks. This is a brand new show we're starting here. It's got myself, obviously, and my co-staffer from 10-Ton Hammer, Jeremy Waxman. So I'll let him go ahead and introduce himself a little bit, and we'll get this thing started here.
Alright, so thanks, Alex. Again, I am Jeremy. Been working with the company for about over a year and a half now. My main focus has been on esports side of things. Obviously, we are a general, online gaming website, so we cover a variety of different things. I focus more on the esports / competitive gaming side of things, but I've fortunately had the opportunity to do some crossover and work on a bunch of different projects. So it's been pretty exciting, and I'm really glad we've been able to get this show and get here for you guys.
Yeah, I'm pretty excited too. This is fun for me. I've been wanting to do something like this for a while. I've done it a little bit to people that are familiar with me and seen me streaming a little bit, or maybe seen me on Theory Forge or Revival Cast, some other shows that I've done. I really enjoy this kind of stuff, and it's going to be even funner to do it with stuff that I'm writing and talking about all the time, and co-workers that I get to hang out with, and we're doing content together. So it's going to be a lot of fun. I'm excited. This show is kind of the first time I think 10 Ton's ever done anything like this, so we're pretty excited to do it. And it won't be just us two. We have plans for lots of future guests and stuff like that that we'll talk about here shortly. But I'm really excited to get going here. But it's also, this is my first time with this show, so I'm getting a hang of the overlay here and everything, so it is a bit different than my last shows. So, but anyhow, so we've got a lot of things going on. I kind of want to start out with just kind of saying welcome to the audience. This format kind of really enables the audience to participate with talking in the chat, joining the conversation. You can ask us questions. You can propose topics. You can obviously email either of us topics for future shows as well. But having the audience interaction is a big kind of part of what I love about this format and what I love about doing shows like this. So obviously anybody who is in the chat and you want to participate, go ahead and chime in. We'll be paying attention to that as best we can. Obviously the more people we get involved, the better it'll be, and we're looking forward to have a really good time with that. But that's kind of the main thing for this show, other than the topics that we'll have and the segments we'll roll through. But I'll go ahead and pass it over to Jeremy, and you can talk about kind of what, for people that may not know that are watching this show, maybe just randomly on Twitch, maybe tell them about what we come from and what 10-Ton Hammer is.
Yeah, absolutely. So 10-Ton Hammer's actually been around for a long time. It used to kind of made its name really on MMO specifically, but we're fortunate enough to have a really good team, people with a lot of different interests and a lot of different strengths. So we've branched out not just be MMO, but all forms of online gaming. So that can be MMO, it can be FPS, it can be MOBAs, it can be any esports title, anything at all. So it's we like to have a good mix. As I said, we're fortunate to have a really talented staff. Where we all get along really well. We're good friends here, and we're just really all happy to be able to not just write, but really explore different topics that we're all really interested in. And one really nice thing that we've actually done very recently, in the past, 10-Ton Hammer had forums, which really helped create a community. So it's not just we as the writers talking to you the viewers, but it really enables discussions. And fortunately, we've been able to relaunch those. They're brand new. They're redesigned. I think they look really good. They really encourage discussions. So anybody, definitely encourage you to get on there and really either create a discussion or jump into something that's already being talked about, and make your voices heard. Because in the end, this isn't as I said, it's not us writers to you viewers. We want to create an experience for everybody to be a part of. So 10tonhammer.com, the forums are right there, and we definitely encourage you to get on there and talk to us.
Absolutely. Another thing too, as far as that goes, this show exists because we have that website. I mean, that is kind of the way that our mainstream of content, that's kind of how we make our living, and we would love to have you guys support in the future. If you like this show as we go on, the episodes and stuff, supporting the main site. There are a lot of different ways you can support them. Probably the most direct support would be through Patreon, which is a campaign we just kicked off pretty recently ago, but we haven't really started pushing it hard yet. But we're trying to offer more content to people, and this is one of the things that we're doing to do that. So as you guys go along, definitely I'll drop in the link in chat of our Patreon page, and you can check that out and support us if you want to. But that's kind of how we make our living. Ad dollars these days just don't do it. So if you guys enjoy the 10 Ton Hammer content on main site and the episode stuff like this, the video content, then definitely support us in that way. So I'll drop that in chat here right now for you all. And that's kind of the best way to support us. And we love it. That's how we get to share news with you guys and talk and provide unique perspectives that other gaming sites don't really do. I mean, I don't know too many that allow the writers to really do what we do. We kind of can take any angle we want, so it's pretty exciting. But anyhow, Jeremy, can you talk about, I guess it'd be a good time to just go into your background, like what got you into gaming, how did you, tell us a little bit about yourself.
Well, what got me into gaming? I've been a gamer really for as long as I can remember. When I was a kid, one of the biggest days for me actually was when I got the Nintendo Entertainment System, when that was, the newest console.
Nice.
And yeah, I just kind of never looked back from there. I've always been a gamer, started out more casually, as I think, most people do for a long time. I was big, just like single player RPG kind of guy, but obviously gaming with friends is always good. And as time has gone on, I've gone more into more competitive games. A friend got me into League of Legends a few years back, and I haven't forgiven him since because I don't have any free time anymore. But it's been really good, and it's actually because of that I got involved with the company. I started with Esports Max when we had that, which was our dedicated esports site. But I think we've done a good job of rolling that into 10 Ton Hammer, so that we can all just be part of the same family pretty much, and I think that's really good. But yeah, so now I'm focused more on competitive titles, League of Legends, Heroes of the Storm, Hearthstone. But we also get to, as you said, kind of do whatever we feel is interesting. So I've also done some stuff for like Diablo 3, which is not a competitive title, and just get to kind of go all over and see what we're interested in. And in the end, whatever titles I'm covering, whatever genre it is, in the end I'm a gamer. I have been, as I said, pretty much my entire life. So being able to write about it, to experience it, to share it, with other people has just been absolutely fantastic.
Yeah, that's pretty awesome. I was really, I mean, it was some bittersweet, the fact that 10 Ton had to do certain things and we had to lose things, and like Esports Max was one of them. But at the same time, I'm kind of glad that happened because I didn't really get a chance to talk to anybody from Esports Max whatsoever before anything like that. So once everybody got rolled in, that was really the first time I got to start hanging out and contributing with you guys and working together. So it's a lot of fun. I'm pretty glad. Like, this show probably wouldn't exist in the format it does right now if we didn't have some of that stuff happening. So it's pretty it's a little bit bittersweet, but I'm excited for where things are sitting now and where they're going, and we definitely have some fun stuff planned. But so you said your first system was the Nintendo Entertainment System, the original?
Yes. Mm-hmm.
So what eclipsed the most of your time with that? Did you play?
Jeez. Well, we're only talking, 25 years ago? Oh, jeez. I don't know. I know at that time gaming systems actually used to come with games. Like the NES came with a cartridge that had both Super Mario Brothers and Duck Hunt on it, which was awesome. So I remember I had that. I don't know even how many games I own. I know every once in a while, I remember my parents, like, if it was like a special occasion or, they just felt like being nice or whatever, like take me out as a treat to go to whatever, I don't think it was Blockbuster at the time, I think it was something else, but whatever, video rental store, and let me pick out a game to rent or whatever, we do that sometimes. So there was just a bunch of different ones. So Yeah, I can't even like necessarily say like one particular one because I think it was always changing. It wasn't for me at the time anyway. It's changed, as time's gone on. But I don't, at the time, it wasn't about, having one game that I was super loyal to and played all the time. It was just I was just happy to be playing video games. Like I don't think it even really mattered what it was at the time. Just
Yeah,
whatever I could get my hands on.
I definitely can relate to that. That's kind of how I was. There wasn't any one dominant game for me or anything. I just kind of played whatever. I never actually got my first system until the Sega Genesis, so I was playing at
Oh,
friends'
okay.
houses and stuff with the Atari and the Nintendo. So the game I always kind of remember from early on, before I even got a system, was the Atari combat game where they had like tanks and helicopters, and you would just it was all blocks going around. That was
Right, right.
so fun, and like now today it would like not even exist as a game. It's like wouldn't qualify. We've got better browser games than the Atari these days. But no, those games were fun. I thought one thing that was cool about all those kind of games was just it was so simple, they just had a few mechanics and they just took those few mechanics and really tried to be as creative as they could with them. So I thought those games had, they played so well, like better than a lot of games today do. So it's pretty cool.
Yeah.
All the retro games, and I think there's a lot of cool stuff about that with the indie movement and doing all this stuff. I think gaming is in a really good place right now and moving towards a really cool place. So
Yeah, for sure.
yeah, that's pretty cool though. So what did you? So you went from the Nintendo Entertainment System. When did you, I guess, very first get into PC gaming?
Um, Probably because of League, to be honest. I've, for most of my life, been a peon console gamer. Um, and it was actually, and it's funny because that's always kind of how I identified myself, and yet once I started playing League, obviously that's PC, and that's where most of my gaming time is gone. And since then, the other games that I play are pretty much all PC, whether it's, something not really intensive like Hearthstone or, Diablo, or, I'm getting into the Heroes of the Storm now. It kind of seems whatever my time is now all PC. So I don't know if that qualifies me as like a true PC gamer because, I'm not, getting all like the big titles and my computer can't exactly handle things terribly graphically intensive anyway. But for I guess what it's worth now, pretty much because of League and what I'm into now, all of my gaming time is pretty much spent on the PC, as odd as that feels to say.
Yeah, that's pretty interesting. I kind of grew up with just playing friends' consoles. I think, I owned a Sega, and then we had a Nintendo 64, because I had so many brothers. Like, the Nintendo 64 was a miracle, because it had, like, four player support built in, so that was really cool. So we had that, and I think I was always kind of doing, like, PC-related stuff during the console era, because I was, like, playing online, kind of role-playing games and stuff, like text chat type stuff. So I was always into that, I think, because my parents never let me play like Dungeons and Dragons tabletop with friends. So I was like, yeah, so I was like playing online basically, and I guess they didn't know or didn't care. I don't know. So yeah, it was always kind of interesting. I never really got to become a console gamer. I think I've always just been that PC gamer type. So
Yeah.
but I love consoles. There's certain games I can't play on the PC, and it's definitely racing and like first person shooter games.
Yeah.
Those are I feel like they work a lot better in console. But yeah.
For me, it was just always something about just having like a controller in my hand just felt right. I don't know.
Yeah. Yeah, definitely. I think like also too, any sports games have to be console. I don't think I've even tried to play a sports game on the PC.
Yeah, I think those are usually console for sure.
Yeah. So what did you have anything else that happened around the time maybe that you got into Ten Ton Hammer? Do you have any funny stories that happened along the way there?
Funny stories. I have stories. I don't know how funny they are. I don't know if I mean I've had some good experiences. I think some of the best times that I've had were being able to travel to some like esports events. I've gotten to both formally interview and casually hang out with professional players, like guys that I've read about or reported on, and you actually get to spend time with them and talk to them, and that's just been a whole lot of fun for me. That's probably the biggest thing. But really, it's as I said, we've been fortunate enough to have a good team. People have come and gone, but the company's generally done a very good job of bringing in people who really care about what they're doing. It's not just people just sitting and trying to get their work done for the day and they don't care. It's people who legitimately care about gaming and are excited to be here, and that's been, I think, the lasting image that I've had working with the company. But what about you? I think you've been here longer than I have, and you give a funny story about your experiences here.
Just barely longer, I think. It was I want to say December, January-ish of
Oh yeah, so just a
previous
few
year.
months. Still,
Yeah,
it's a
not
few
too
months
much
to
longer.
have a funny experience with.
Yeah, I don't know. I always thought the way that I came on was kind of funny because I had come across like that, EverQuest Next debut thing, 2013. They're like, oh, EverQuest is coming back, and that was like my first MMO that I played. Well, that and UO, but I pretty much became an EverQuest addict for a little while there, and um, I loved that game. And so when I saw they were doing a debut, I'm like, oh, so I started following everything, and of course, Daybreak Games is, when they were doing all that, they were kind of pushing Twitter to be this new kind of news front for them. So, you're following all the developers, tweet the devs or whatever, and you could kind of follow along with the development for Landmark and EverQuest Next. So I started doing that, and that's actually how I ran into Shaylin from EQ Hammer, she's not with us anymore, but and I saw her post a job opportunity for that, so I kind of, applied, and she's like, yeah, I ended up going with somebody else, but she kind of passed me on to Ruben, and Ruben really liked me, so he kind of just squeezed me in somewhere and on 10 ton early on. I think I was just riding there for like maybe a couple months, and I didn't even do a ton of content really until then he just realized all I was writing about was EverQuest and Landmark and all the stuff I was passionate about, so they just shifted me over to EQ Hammer anyway. So and I was doing that for I think the first year, just writing solid about that, and it was kind of funny though because I ended up going back in to my editor Shaylin ended up getting both the people she wanted to hire instead of having to choose just one, so it's kind of funny for her. So, but yeah, that was kind of how I got in. But as far as like further back than 10 ton, I really, like I said, I was playing friends games, Atari, playing friends Nintendo systems, and then when I got my first system, the Sega Genesis, man, it was over. I played, Kid Chameleon, Sonic the Hedgehog a ton, and then I got absolutely hooked on the thing that really kind of got me hooked on RPGs was Shining Force. Just this type of long-term narrative that you just go through. Still one of my favorite games to this day is Shining Force 1 and 2, and it's kind of like, I talk about it like I'm so happy about it, but like most people are like, yeah, Final Fantasy's still way better, because it was kind of like Sega's version of a Final Fantasy that was going through the Nintendo consoles at that time. So,
Right.
but yeah, I really loved it. I had a lot of fun with Shining Force and kind of got hooked on RPGs, and I've always been into narrative and creative writing, so that was just something that kind of felt natural to me. So I was playing online games, just like text-based RPGs and stuff with friends, sometimes even without dice, just total freeform, almost more writing than it was playing a game, but it was kind of just a combination of both. So I've always looked, I guess when I've played games now, like RPGs, I've always looked for that type of social dynamic you can have in those tabletop situations. So that's why I'm a drifter now. There's no game I'm like playing right now. I'm just drifting while I'm waiting for a more ideal type MMO to come along that really kind of, and there are some, I think that's the reason I'm not playing anything, because there are some right on the horizon that are just so good. It's hard to like see those and then still like what's out there right now. So, so yeah,
You're just getting excited for what's gonna come.
Oh yeah, definitely.
Nice.
Yeah, it's been fun. I've had a lot of fun with 10 ton. We going to SOE Live was by far pretty awesome. I came back a total zombie because not only were you like I was really plugged into the 10 ton the Landmark and EverQuest Next community, so like there was a ton of people I wanted to meet and hang out with, and then on top of that I was out there at work, so I'm out there going to every single panel, taking notes and everything, and then staying up late, hanging out with people in Vegas, and it was just, I came back totally zombified. It was, I think I got like 18 hours of sleep in 5 days. It was pretty nuts.
Oh, wow.
So, yeah, but it was a lot of fun. I had a blast doing it, so it was good times. Definitely, our former social media manager, Skylatron, was hilarious and like funniest person ever. So yeah, if you guys ever, I think she still streams sometimes on Twitch, so definitely I'll probably drop her thing in the chat. She's hilarious. You guys would love watching her, so you can check her out sometimes. But yeah, that's kind of really it for me. I mean, I did go to actually the Art Institute for a couple years to study game design. I never quite finished my degree, but yeah, that is really what got me hooked on kind of the stuff where you know, that I'm writing a lot about, people, you know, that are familiar with my content on 10 Ton Hammer. That's, I really kind of break down mechanical, you know, design, art, just aspects and nuances to the game, systems of how it works. You know, that always really intrigues me, how things work. So I've always been into mechanical, you know, mechanical systems and stuff. So it's really cool stuff. That's what I write, I'd say, primarily about nowadays on 10 Ton, is just, you know, kind of getting deeper under the skin of games is kind of the best way to say it.
Right. Nice.
Yeah, it's been fun. So, I don't know, this is our first show for everybody that's watching, so we're giving a little bit of our backgrounds and stuff, but we also have some interesting stuff here. I kind of went through and picked out a bunch of questions and stuff, and some interesting scenarios, some popular geek debates that we're going to go through and kind of talk about where we fall. So all of you watching out there might know, you know, whose argument you might like more in a certain area or something, because I've kind of picked some very polarizing things for us nerdy geek types. So you guys will kind of see where we fall. But I'll go ahead and kick it off with the first one, and you can go ahead and your answer can be as short or as long as you want. But if you had to pick Marvel or DC Comics?
Well, my answer is going to be a little different, and I'll tell you why. Because as much of a nerd as I have clearly been my entire life, if you ask anybody, I was never really a comic book geek. So my experiences with those universes have been more recent through you know, film or TV. So my answer to that question is going to have to be more based off of those. So with that said, the quality of visual entertainment that Marvel has put out is unrivaled by almost anybody in or out of the comic book universe. So for that sake, I think they have an edge. With that said, and I think from what I've heard over time, a lot of people will disagree. I still think Superman is awesome. I've always enjoyed him.
We were agreeing on things. And you had to go and say that. Okay.
It's also partially though, because honestly, it was on a smaller network. It was on the CW network, but Smallville was an amazing show, and honestly, that has a lot to do with it. That really got me into Superman a lot. I just love that show, so that had a lot to do with it too. So overall, I think I'd have to take Marvel, but we'll see. I think DC might be able to step up. Obviously, it's going to be hard to do what Marvel has done, but they're clearly trying. You know, they're going to eventually be doing, you know, the whole Justice League thing. So I'm excited to see what they do. But I think overall, right now, Marvel definitely has the edge.
Yeah, I think I'll have to agree with you on Smallville being pretty good, because I absolutely hate Superman, and I think I watched, you know, 5 or 6 episodes. So if I can watch 5 or 6 episodes of a superhero I hate, it's got to be pretty good. But yeah, for me, show. I don't know. I was into comics a little bit. I didn't get to buy a ton of them, you know, but I read quite a few of them, and for me, it's always been Marvel, and even too, I really agree. Like, Marvel's quality with their cinematic universe has been beyond. Like, Iron Man's been one of my favorite characters, not my favorite, but one of them. And you know, seeing them take his story and put it into modern times, because you know, he was originally, it was Vietnam where his story, you know, the war, and they put it in Afghanistan. And I thought that was amazing. I really loved, because to me it was kind of like that whole nature of what Marvel's always done, which, well, what all comics have kind of done, where you take, you know, political or, you know, social topics or headlines of the time, and you kind of make them relatable to people in a fun way. So I felt like Marvel taking that choice of kind of creating a new universe, you know, parallel or whatever they are doing with their cinematic universe. I thought it was awesome. I love it. So
Yeah, definitely.
Marvel is definitely my favorite. DC, DC's weird for me because as much as I dislike Superman as being like this OP, perfect Boy Scout, everything awesome, and then he has a green rock that is his weakness. It's just I haven't really seen too many things with like character flaws for Superman, which is what I really like. So, but anyways, I've kind of liked Batman, you know, a little bit in the past, and I've got a friend who absolutely is a DC fanatic, so he keeps dragging me deeper and deeper. So now they're kind of, you know, I like them both. But definitely Marvel has all my favorite characters, my most favorite characters, so it still totally wins. But DC, I'm definitely open to some DC cinematic universe stuff. I'll probably never read the comics of DC, although I do love the Green Lantern, like the whole concept of the rings and everything. So I would actually, I'm considering reading Lantern comics because I've heard the new ones are pretty awesome with all the different, you know, tribes of rings and the Black Lanterns and stuff. Pretty cool. But anyways, yeah, long story short, for me it's Marvel, so as well.
Nice. Alright, so now we're gonna move on to, I don't know, maybe the largest single nerd culture debate of all time, I think even more so than Marvel or DC, which is the debate of the stars, Star Wars versus Star Trek.
Yes, and I'm not sure how this happened to me, but I'm gonna kind of blame it partially on my stepdad, who he was a Star Trek fanatic, and he had us watch all the movies when we were kids, and I didn't like it. Like it was like it was a forced thing, you know. So I ended up, you know, gravitating more towards Star Wars, and like I also too I've always loved the concept of the Jedi, you know, this whole metaphorical or metaphysical, you know, philosophical balancing of, you know, the good and the bad. I've always loved that. It's intrigued me. So Star Wars has been my favorite thing. I know a lot about Star Trek just from watching a lot of the stuff as a kid, but I've never actually loved it. I would say though that the new movies, I haven't seen Into Darkness yet, just because I actually haven't really had much time. But I loved the first one, so I really want to see Star Trek Into Darkness because I liked the cast they picked. I thought it was pretty cool. So it was a good movie, and it was written really well. I appreciate really good writing. So, but yeah, Star Wars has been my favorite, even though, you know, like the last three movies were like, a couple of them were it was just a lot of cool stuff happening in them, but yeah, they could have been better written a little bit, but yeah, definitely Star Wars for me.
Sure. Yeah, so for me, I agree with you. I think one of the most appealing things about Star Wars is the whole yin and yang, you know, Jedi versus dark side and all that, and I actually, you know, always find that really, really interesting. With that said, both of my parents, perhaps just, you know, being older, were actually really big Star Trek fans, which is funny because my mother actually is usually not into that kind of stuff. My nerdy side definitely comes more from my father, and my mother, she's usually not into that stuff, but she actually really likes Star Trek too, which is interesting. So I guess I was just exposed to that a lot more when I was younger. So I just had a lot more Star Trek, I guess, than I did Star Wars in my life. So that probably influenced me more towards that side. I will say, as you did, the new Star Trek movies are really good. Even though before watching them, I actually hadn't watched Star Trek in a long time. I was still interested for the movies, and Into Darkness is good. You should watch it. But both movies were really compelling. And as you said, really well written, well acted. Maybe a few too many blue lens flares in the first one. But other than that, I thought it was a really good movie. So I guess just more for the sake of exposure and what I grew up with, for me, it's Star Trek. But I guess I don't feel like one's great and one sucks, which I guess is a fairly common way of looking at that. But, you know, I definitely have things that appeal to me about both. But so just from growing up with it, I think Star Trek would have to be where my allegiance lay if I had to pick one.
Nice. All right, well, that is, I think definitely those two are probably the biggest debatable topics that we had so far. I probably should have left one of those to last, but the next one I have is kind of more of like if you had to be in the past, you know, when during their height and prime, pirate or ninja. I guess it actually doesn't even have to be in the past. If you had to be one of these lifestyles and embrace, would it be a pirate or a ninja?
Well, see, for me, this might be the easiest question that we have here. See, because I get seasick, so Ninja, obviously.
Yeah, I would probably pick Ninja 2 just because I love like parkour and free running and all that kind of stuff. So I would definitely pick Ninja 2. But Pirates is so tempting. I mean, think of the lifestyle that you could have if you could not get seasick. I guess that's kind of the bottom line there.
With that said, I did write an entire article about how we need more love for the pirate theme in Hearthstone. So clearly, I have some love for them too.
Awesome. Yeah, I love picking topics like that is really interesting. Going through it's I don't know if you've ever heard like the that History Channel thing where they did like they picked all these epic fighting styles like Apache, Samurai, Spartan, and they just kind of pit them against each other and armchair it out. I've always loved those shows. So if you never see those, you have to watch them. I think they're on YouTube. Probably you can see them. They're pretty hilarious. And I have apparently lost Jeremy temporarily, so he may be coming back here shortly, I think. We'll see. And I have him. We'll see if I can get video, and we will be back. Good to go. But yeah, so we've still got some more back and forth type topics here, but while I'm waiting for him to get back, if you guys are in future episodes, they will actually go quite different than the one we're doing today. Today is so introductory, it's just kind of getting the thing off the ground. So the future episodes, we're going to actually have guests, live guests, maybe a developer, other 10 Ton Hammer staffers, and it may be kind of an interview between us of that extra guest, or we'll pick topics that apply to them as well. And then, we'll be talking about whatever topics we have the week, stuff like that. That's kind of the theme for this show. But now I have Jeremy back, actually.
Hello.
He has returned.
I have.
And I believe the next topic is yours to. It's your turn to throw a question out.
That it is. So obviously we're big gamers, but you can't game 24/7. So when not gaming, what kind of entertainment do you look for? You more of a reading kind of guy with books? Do you prefer the visual style of movies or TV? What are you looking at?
For me, I'd have to say books, definitely. I do enjoy movies, but I literally, I probably only go to the movie theater for my certain movies. Like anything comic related, I'll go to. And then there are different things that, I'll aim for, but I really am not a big movie watcher. So books for me, I love R.A. Salvador, Forgotten Realms, D&D stuff, I love. I used to read Michael Crichton all the time. I think he passed away relatively recently, but he wrote like Jurassic Park, The Lost World, Timeline, which was a terrible movie, but an amazing book, absolutely amazing. So, but yeah, those were some of my favorite authors, and then C.S. Lewis, Tolkien. I really loved the high fantasy stuff too. I thought the Aragon books were pretty epic. I mean, they're designed for a younger audience, but actually as you read through further in the series, they get really good. So, but yeah, I'm a big reader. Obviously, writing to my own stuff, so reading is very high up on my list of things I like to do. So, what about you, movies or books?
Well, I will say along your lines of Crichton with the movies and compared to the books, one of my favorite books actually his book Sphere, which was not a great movie, but really good book. The movie they cut out like half of the book. It was awful. Anyway, when I was younger, I was a huge reader. Like, I was actually how I spent most of my free time. As I've gotten older, I've actually kind of gotten away from that, which is kind of bad, but I'm glad that I did when I was young, because it gave me an appreciation for good writing, and just proper use of the English language, I suppose, which has, helped me now, because I still, value that highly, in my own writing, and, when I'm reading something that somebody else has written. So I think it's given me a good base, but now I have trended more towards the visual forms of entertainment. I'm actually still I'm not a huge moviegoer. Like you, I rarely go to the movie theaters, mostly probably for Marvel movies when like a group of friends are going. But I do watch a fair bit of television across a lot of different genres. I guess more it's because I use it now as just a kind of way to relax at the end of the day. So there's just something, I guess, soothing about just, sitting there and not doing anything. Just being able to absorb it. So I would say probably not even movies either, more television. But yeah, my reading now more comes from the internet, whether it's articles, on different things that I'm interested in, whether it be gaming or other stuff. That's probably where most of my reading comes in now.
Nice. Yeah, I'm actually, I can't even think. I think the last TV like seasonal episode type thing I watched was back when Spartacus was on Stars, I think. Yeah, I just don't even have TV in my house. Maybe it's because my kids are really young and I'm trying to get them into reading books and stuff too while they're young, just so they can have
Sure.
that before they get into the video future that it seems like everything is turning into. So, but yeah,
No, I think that's a good idea for sure.
yeah, so I haven't watched anything in a long time, and there's so many things on my list that I would really want to watch. Of course, Game of Thrones, Walking Dead, and then all the comic stuff if I could. So, but I literally probably have time to watch none of them. So,
Sure.
but yeah, so I guess I'm partially a book person by default because I just don't even have TV to even influence the more video content. So, but yeah.
Right.
I have the next question here. This one is quite interesting. You could take it however you want to, whether it was actually going to happen or whether you'd be a part of or in a game, whatever you want to do. But alien invasion or zombie apocalypse? Which one is
In real life?
better or worse? Yeah, sure, real life.
Okay.
Which one would you prefer to least like to happen and why, or the other way around?
I think my preference, obviously both have ways of going very badly. I think my preference would actually have to be the alien invasion. The reason why is the zombie apocalypse, it has the word apocalypse in its name, which pretty much already says that humanity's done for. So there's that. The whole very few, like 20 survivors on the entire planet thing, not great. So I feel like with the aliens, you're probably still in trouble, but they're obviously intelligent since they figured out what we haven't, and how to travel and find new sentient life and a planet that they can at least survive in with whatever gear they have. So my feeling is that if they're here and they're that intelligent, there's at least a possibility we might be able to reason with them, and if maybe not everybody, maybe some of us could, and at least get some of humanity spared. Whereas zombies, I don't think are very open to civil discussion.
All right, to put a twist on
that's what I'm going with.
To put a twist on your answer, what if reasoning, negotiation was out of the question? It was basically the end of humanity, and it either had to be at the hands of aliens, maybe getting tested on, or becoming a zombie and eating each other.
I would still have to go with the aliens because I think it's probably faster and less painful, because usually, at least in the movies, they have, just giant lasers and stuff. So I feel like if we're going to get wiped out, better to just do it right away rather than, through the slow eating and turning process.
See, I think that the zombie apocalypse would be the way to go for me. I feel like aliens, it's who knows what to expect. Like zombies, at least, we have an idea of, what to do. Even if they're like the crazy I Am Legend type zombies where they're super fast and powerful. You have like, I like it because it's a human issue, like humanity is in this thing and we got to figure it out. We're in it together, and there's been a lot of interesting stuff. But the reason I pick Zombie 2 is because if it is the typical, cliche shambling zombie thing, I don't think it's going to be hard at all to survive. It's just dumb and slow, and movies make it dramatic about actually being scary, but I don't think it would be all that bad. I think we have enough ammunition and bombs in the world to take care of all zombies, so I'd go with zombies. But
all right, so let's move it over more to the gaming side, and I think you kind of touched on it earlier, but we'll make sure you give an official response this time. Your favorite game you have ever played could either be an original or a remake, but what are you looking at?
Oh, this is so hard because there's so many good games, really. But I kind of mentioned Shining Force before, and if I was gonna go something that was like totally old school retro, it would definitely be the Shining Force series. I just played so much of them. There's just so much nostalgia tied to that. But favorite game of all time, I don't think there was any game that I really got hooked on more than Final Fantasy VII, because just that was like the combination of everything I loved about Shining Force, plus you had this new type of like cinematic CG kind of injected for the first time. I just thought Final Fantasy VII was hands down an amazing game, probably the best game, considering all things considered, of its time. So Final Fantasy VII for me. What about you?
I'll make it short, but I'm going to give it a top 3 because I don't think I could without it. So, the game that I spent the most time on overall in my life now is probably League of Legends, and it's the game that I've done the most with. Hell, it's the reason why I even have this job and I'm here right now. So I can't exactly leave it off the list. So League is an amazing game. Number 2, I'm going to throw out there, this is my second favorite game of all time. I'm going to do it because if this doesn't spark debate, I don't know what will. My second favorite game of all time is actually Final Fantasy VIII. That game was absolutely amazing, and I think it got a bad rap because I don't think it mattered what the actual game was. Any game that was titled Final Fantasy VIII was going to get hated on by the community just because it followed FF7.
That's the fairest argument I've heard. Because, yeah, I didn't like 8 either, but that was really fair reasoning of probably why. So
yeah, like, literally, you could have had Final Fantasy VII, you know, the same quality of game or the same stuff, called it Final Fantasy VIII, and people would have hated on it. So the thing is that if you're looking at an RPG for character development, for storytelling, for innovative systems, you know, for a really interesting, compelling world, which is all things I'm looking for in an RPG, FF8 had all of those in spades. So it was actually a fantastic game. My favorite game of all time, the one that I have played through I don't even know how many times, and the game that really, really got me into RPGs and all that is, actually I'm saying, I think it was 96. That's when it came out. Xenogears was
very good.
The single most fantastic game that I have ever played. It has all those things that I talked about that I said for FF8, but it also had a really interesting political / religious story to it, which I always find really compelling. And like there's the whole like corruption of power, you know, within both religion and politics, and you know, also giant mech combat, which, you know, you can't argue with. But the characters and storytelling in that game to me have been second to none to anything else I've ever seen, and that game has just always had me coming back. Like even now, I actually have a file that I started not that long ago. I don't know how many times I played through that game, but it always has been and always will be just my #1 game of all time.
That's so funny. Yeah, the mech stuff is awesome. When I was a teenager, I think one of the first websites I ever tried to build was just one that cataloged all of the different like mechs and stuff from the Gundam like lore and stuff like that. So yeah, I love that stuff too. I can't believe I didn't think of Xenogears. That is an amazing game. Good top pick.
Nice.
So, past games aside, this is our favorite of all time. What's your current favorite? I think you've kind of said a little bit. I know you love League of Legends a lot, but is there anything else out there you could consider a current favorite alongside it?
Yeah, absolutely. I definitely have to give a shout out to Hearthstone. This is going to be an interesting little backstory for me. For a long time, for about the time the game came out until I want to say about 2008, I was huge into the Yu-Gi-Oh card game. Like, you know, went to the card store every week, you know, played with friends, traveled to tournaments, like huge into the Yu-Gi-Oh card game. Eventually I had to stop. It's expensive to try to stay current with that, but I loved it so much. I never actually got into Magic, but it's probably just because I never really, until much later when I was kind of already out of card games, I never really had friends that were into it. So, you know, I think something like that, it's really about the social experience. So my friends were into the Yu-Gi-Oh game, and I just really got into that really, really hard. So it's been years since I've been into that, and I've kind of got an itch, like, to get back into card games. And like I tried to not actually get back into Yu-Gi-Oh, but learn about it, you know, and there's like, you know, free online things you can play, and I just couldn't get into it. There's too much time had passed. Literally thousands of cards have been released since the last time I was paying attention to the game, and it's just impossible to keep up with all that. So I started playing Hearthstone And interestingly, I've never played Warcraft, so I don't know the backstories of any of like the characters or cards or anything. So I started playing it just to see what it was about, and the more I played it, the more I realized that not only is it just a good design, it is straight up a good card game. Like it is really well designed. It has an excellent balance of easy to understand the basics, but still requires a lot of time and effort to really master, which I think is one of the signs of a really good game. Especially in any sort of competitive genre, that it should be easy to pick up but hard to actually be good at. And the more time that I've spent with Hearthstone, the more I've really come to love it. So definitely Hearthstone. I spent a lot of time on Diablo 3 as well. I've always been a huge Diablo fan from the first one. Spent a lot of time in the first one. Diablo 2 is probably competing for the most hours I've ever put into a game in my life. It was a Diablo 2, and I've spent a lot of time in D3 as well. I'm actually really looking forward to the next patch, which should be coming out some point in the near future. So there's that, and then just recently started getting into Heroes of the Storm, which is a very different MOBA from League, so it's definitely taken some getting used to, but there's a lot of cool things in that game as well. So that's where a lot of my time recently has gone.
Yeah, my favorites parallel yours in a lot of ways. League of Legends obviously is up there for me. It's hands down my favorite MOBA to play, and then MMOs would be I wish I could say that I had an MMO that's my favorite that I'm playing right now, but I'm not. Like I said earlier, I'm just drifting while I wait for the perfect MMO to come. But in between, it's kind of interesting that you mentioned Magic. I actually have always kind of stayed around in it a little bit, and I didn't really get into it until long after it was really popular, probably about 7 or 8 years ago. My brother had played it when we were really young and loved it, and I ended up getting in it with him again, and we just started building decks, legacy with any card goes type thing, and we built up a huge collection, and I still have, several decks built, and even though I'm not living near my brother, I have like 4 or 5 decks, and I have a friend who loves playing too, but he doesn't really have many cards, and we'll just take my same 4 or 5 decks and play for like 4 hours or something. So I love Magic the Gathering. Just most beautiful game as far as, easy to kind of pick up at first. I mean, it is a little heady, but like for somebody who first picks up, you're just reading the cards and it makes a lot of sense. It's really just learning how the turn progression goes. But yeah. Having that simplicity of the way it works and how the colors have themes and go against each other, and all the mechanics that can get so deep, especially when you start doing legacy type stuff. It's just an amazing game of skill, skill and strategy, and and fun too, because I think I don't know, I always used to love making decks that were just hilarious and did silly things like killing goblins, or just funny combos that were just entertaining for people to watch happen. So I've always loved it. So it's a lot of I'd say that's probably one of my favorite games. I'm doing a lot now alongside with League when I get time to play it, and then that's really kind of my 2 favorites, I would say, right now, bouncing around while I wait for the future goodness to come. Welcome, Totem. We're just kind of talking about favorite games and stuff. We've been talking about kind of introducing ourselves since this is our first show. So welcome to the show, to the chat, and I think what do we have next there, Jeremy?
Well, my last topic that I think makes sense so far, we've talked about the past, we've talked about our current favorites, so I think the logical conclusion is, what are you looking forward to? I think you've already said you're looking forward to a few MMOs, so what's got you excited?
Like I said, what really got me into 10 Ton Hammer to begin with was really just EverQuest Next kind of hooked me in, and the whole concept of AI and them improving AI to where you're at the point where the world is kind of operating and dynamically changing. It's no longer this static content we've had for so long. That was just so intriguing to me, and of course too with one of my favorite franchise of all time. I spent so much time playing EverQuest. I love the world and the different concepts and stuff. So I'm really looking forward to that, but given everything Daybreak has been through, I'm kind of shaky in whether it'll turn out to be the way they told us at first. So I've really, I've been putting my feelers out there otherwise. And Revival by Ilphonic, they're doing some work on Star Citizen, I believe, as well, but they're in-house baking Revival, and I mean, it's not really my favorite theme with Lovecraft. I'm not familiar with it, but I absolutely love the concepts they're doing with the evolving multiplayer evolving world, focused a lot more on social gameplay rather than the solo experience you play alongside other people that most MMOs are today. So, yeah, I think I would say that's definitely the top game. Revival kind of overtakes EverQuest next right now just because of the circumstances. It just looks to have so many things I'm looking for in an online RPG, or a multiplayer RPG to be specific. So that's definitely the one for me. What about you?
Well, given the games that I play, I guess it's more patches that I'm looking forward to. There's a big Hearthstone announcement coming up on the 22nd, so we're actually almost there, which is probably going to be a new card expansion, so it's going to be interesting to see what they do there. Other than that, as I said, I'm really looking forward to the new Diablo 3 patch. They've got a lot of good stuff coming up in there. I think that game has just really impressed me, because when D3 first came out, it was kind of meh, and they have done nothing but improve that game drastically since. They've put a lot of effort into it, so I'm really excited about that. Other than that, as far as like an actual game, the one that comes to mind is I used to play some FPSs with friends. I spent some time with Call of Duty until I couldn't stand that game anymore, which didn't take that long. But Overwatch is actually going to be interesting, because Blizzard has a way of taking a genre and kind of simplifying it, but still making it a whole lot of fun. And I think that's something that the FPS genre could really use. So I'm actually really excited to see what Overwatch brings. So as far as an actual game, that's what I'm looking forward to. And other than that, it's just to be some new content in the games that I'm already playing.
That's an interesting way to phrase it, because I totally agree, which is why I think about Blizzard, which is why I kind of maybe don't like Heroes of the Storm as much as other MOBAs, because I feel like that genre wasn't quite at the point where it needed the Blizzard touch yet. So I'm not sure if that happened too early, but I guess when you want to get into the esports scene, you're going to have to start building up and working your way into it. It's competition for spectators in a lot of ways, I think. So there's only so many people out there that are watching and paying to watch and paying to play for that stuff. So
yeah, and I think that I kind of agree with you in that, like, maybe it didn't 100% need it, but at the same time, from what I've seen, both in game and hanging out on Reddit, different things, and just interacting with people, is that there's a lot of people that kind of like the MOBA genre. They like the concept of it, but either didn't have the time or didn't want to spend the time for a 40 to 50 minute game each time. They want to just be able to sit down for 15, 20 minutes. They found some of the things like farming creeps and that to be a little boring, and I can certainly understand that. Even if I don't necessarily agree with it, I can certainly see where they're coming from. And I don't think they're wrong. So I think it's kind of opened up the genre to people who maybe wouldn't otherwise be playing. So I don't think it's necessarily even to compete with other games in the genre. I think it was to bring in people who otherwise felt like they couldn't get into it, I think, is a big part of the appeal.
Yeah, Blizzard's done a good job of targeting audience, finding a section of the market that's not really being supported. I think World of Warcraft kind of did that with, MMOs were just so heavy and time intensive and maybe too social for a lot of people, and I think World of Warcraft came along and made a lot of those things easier and less intrusive. Like World of Warcraft, you can play and you don't feel pressure to be a part of different social systems. You could just play and have fun and enjoy the narrative. So I totally agree. I think Blizzard does a great job in what they do. So it'll be interesting to see how Heroes of the Storm progresses in that.
For sure.
But I think we are getting close to the end of the show here. So I just definitely wanted to kind of shift gears and kind of let the audience know. I think I've mentioned it once before already when we had technical issues, but this show is kind of the format we have here. This is the format that we kind of are looking to go in, but what we're doing here today is really just an introduction of ourselves as the primary hosts and kind of what our show is going to be about a little bit. But in future shows, we're actually going to have a specific topic or handful of topics that we're going to talk about. Usually with another guest. I believe next week we're actually going to have another fellow 10-ton staffer, which will be a mystery guest. I'm not sure which one it is finally going to be, but we will have one of them for sure. on, and you guys will get to meet them. We're gonna get to introduce them a little bit and their background, and then we're gonna, the three of us, kind of hash out a popular topic, whether it's news stuff that happens this coming next week, or a patch, a game update, or anything really. That's kind of one of the things about the show. We're not really pigeonholing it into any specific thing. We're going to talk about whatever we think is something to talk about out there. What is important to gamers in general, which I think we kind of illustrated with this show. We have backgrounds in MMOs and esports, but really we are just gamers, and we want to talk about gaming and news and anything like that. So that's kind of the goal for this show, and I think we're gonna have a lot of fun doing it. And definitely anybody that may be watching this or watching the replay of this on Twitch or YouTube, tune in for the next week for sure. We're gonna have a guest and hash out a topic, and also to submit topics to us. You can email us, Velix at 10 Ton Hammer, or Jeremy, your email. You can drop that in the chat too, and you guys can submit topics. And actually too, there is a potential as well. We'll talk about it more in the future once we get things nailed down. But through Patreon, I believe we're going to have the opportunity for actual audience guests to be potential guests on the show and come on and talk with us about games. So if that's something you're interested in, that'll be an option you can pursue through Patreon and helping support us. If you love listening to us and you want to participate in the conversation, that's the way you can do it. So I want to thank you guys for coming. Thanks, Totem, for hanging out in the chat a little bit, and we appreciate you coming on the show. Jeremy, did you have any other things? I guess the one thing I didn't do is what's your content going to look like for next week? Are there any things that you're focusing on or you're excited about, you want to share, give a little preview?
Definitely do. I mean, there's some recurring features we do each week. We've actually put a lot of work into creating a calendar each week for ongoing esporting events, particularly like large tournaments or anything that's going on, to try to keep people in the know, because for some reason information is harder to come by than you might think. So that's a big deal. We also go over the top Hearthstone decks of each week. So if you ever want to know what's going on in the game, what decks are going to be playing right now to ladder, definitely check that out. Other than that, our ongoing Heroes of the Storm coverage is, from what I've seen, top of the line. I don't know if there's any other sites that really compete well with what we're putting out there. We've got great tier lists, we've got great guides. Definitely check those out if you're interested in any of that, and we'll be constantly producing more content there as well.
Awesome. Yeah, for me, it's just going to be, I'm going to be wrapping up the end of I kind of have a column mini-series going, the quest for the perfect MMO, kind of themed in Monty Python Holy Grail. It's been a lot of fun. I think next week I'll actually be getting near the end of that, wrapping that up, and other than that, I'll of course be, making sure the news is there for everybody that's following games. Daybreak I follow a lot, so that's what a lot of my content focuses around. So that's really mostly it for us, but you guys can definitely go check out, if you don't know about the website or haven't been there, go check out 10tonhammer.com. A ton of written content, and even our guides now are moving towards a lot of visual stuff too. So really good stuff, top notch, like Jeremy was saying with Heroes of the Storm, and the other guides up there are really good too. I believe there's a lot of Skyforge stuff right now, Guild Wars 2 with the new expansion in and all that kind of stuff. So go check it out, and again, we want to thank you guys for watching. We appreciate it, and we are definitely looking forward to seeing you next week with a surprise guest for next week. So thank you guys for coming. Appreciate it, and we'll catch you next time.
So we'll be here each Friday at 3 p.m. Eastern, so definitely hope you guys come back and check it out.
Yep. All right.
Thanks for stopping by.
Bye.